Hello and welcome to another Arc tutorial. I'm Terrifier and today I've got a list of the 10 most valuable tips I can think of for beginners. This is jam-packed with advice, so you might need to watch it twice to get everything. However, if you do end up enjoying this video, please consider subscribing for more content like this. The first thing I want to talk about today is your character stats, particularly movement speed. I see a ton of players talking about how easy it is to be killed by dinos, and they're 100% right, but animals in Arc are limited to certain speeds and easy to outrun if you build your character well. As a survivor, you're super squishy compared to most of the creatures in the world, and unless you have good weapons and armor, most animals will kill you in a few hits. You need a backup plan for combat, and typically the best solution is to run. For example, BitMoreDave and I played through Aberration together, starting with a level 1 character. My strategy was to level movement speed and nothing else until I could outrun raptors and ravagers. Dave's plan was to increase all of his stats together instead of focusing on one. Unfortunately for Dave, he died over 15 times in a roughly 2-hour session. I'm not saying Dave is bad at Arc or anything. He's actually a clever player with clever strategies that you should consider checking out. I'll link him in the description. I'm just saying that the way you build your character initially makes a difference in how easy the early game is. Movement speed is one of the most important stats to buff, and you should hyper focus on increasing it before any other stat. Tip number 2 is to learn the creatures. There are over 150 creatures in Arc, all with different abilities, attributes, and behaviors. As a beginner, you'll probably be most comfortable spending your time on beaches. That being said, it's in your best interest to know how each common beach creature behaves. Knowing the difference in animal behaviors can be very beneficial because they'll play a role in your decision making later on. In my experience, the best way to learn about creature behavior is to do some scientific testing. First, see if the creature is aggressive by simply approaching it. If you can walk all the way up to it and make contact with it, you can be sure it's passive. If you can't, well, you're probably dead already and have learned a valuable lesson about that creature's behavior, right? The next thing to do is to attack it. I know this is crazy and it'll almost always end up in your death if the animal defends itself, but honestly, how else are you supposed to learn? Like, I know that raptors are aggressive because they've chased me down and killed me. Likewise, I understand that a triceratops will attack me when I shoot it because I've shot it and died, you know? You can use creature behavior to your advantage by leading dinos into traps or away from an area you need to defend. Either way, death is a vital part of Arc as a beginner, and you can't be afraid of it or discouraged by it. Every time you die, you respawn with a little bit more knowledge than you had before, so you should look at death as a learning tool. That being said, tip number 3 is about respawn points. Respawn points in Arc are absolutely essential to your progress. If you make a base with everything you need to survive but don't have a way to respawn in it, you'll be set back again and again. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You know? Sleeping bags and beds are the only way to set a precise spawn location, and any Arc player of any skill will have a multitude of them spread out across the map. You might be thinking to yourself, sleeping bags are useless. I can only respawn in it once before it's destroyed. And a few months ago, honestly, I would have agreed with you, but they're essential for recovering gear or overcoming a death loop. Sleeping bags are easy to put outside of caves or difficult areas to give yourself a better opportunity to return to the location of your death and recover your tames and items. Like if you're about to die in the murder snow on Ragnarok because of the cold, make sure you place a sleeping bag down so that when you die, you can respawn in the same spot, grab your stuff, and move forward a little bit. Rinse and repeat until you're out of the dangerous area. Simple. Tip number 4 is to use landmarks and map markers to navigate. Have you ever spent a couple hours building a base only to get lost in the world and not be able to find it again? I have like a billion times, and because of that, I've come up with some navigation solutions. First, you can place wooden signs down to use as directional markers when venturing away from your base. This serves as a trail that you can easily follow to return home, but honestly, it's terrible for PvP since you're literally just leading survivors to your base. Instead, you can always just use map markers to get you a little bit closer to home. They're not super precise, but they'll get you really close. Just pull up the map, press P on PC or X on Xbox, type in the coordinates, and you've got a nice little marker. Markers can be used for resource hotspots, obelisks, loot drop spawns, and more, so seriously, get creative with it. This goes hand in hand with tip number 5, which is to learn resource hotspots. You're gonna need to venture out for metal, crystal, cementing paste, and a ton of other resources, which means it's beneficial to learn where you can get them. There are a few ways to find the resources you're looking for, but the most effective method is using the Arc Wiki. There are resource spawn maps that you can filter through to find the location of specific resources. Like if I want to find crystal on Ragnarok, I just go to the Ragnarok resource map and filter for crystal. Now I have all these little dots on the map with specific coordinates I can go to find exactly what I need. Alternatively, you could just fly around looking for resources, but you'll definitely waste a lot of time that way unless you really like exploring. Speaking of flying around and exploring, tip number 6 is to tame helpful creatures. It's critical to not waste time taming dinos that won't help you out in the long run. When you're looking to tame your first few creatures, make sure it can help you accomplish one of 5 goals. First, you need a way to get off the ground. The ground is super dangerous and your survivor is super squishy, so I recommend getting a pteranodon due to their abundance on beaches. Other flyers do work as well, you just need something, literally anything, to get you off the ground. Second, you need a berry gatherer for narcoberries. My personal favorite is the Ankylosaurus because it's excellent at harvesting berries, but it also doubles as the best metal gatherer in the entire game. Metal gathering is another one of the 5 requirements you'll need to meet anyways, so since it checks 2 goals off the list, I super strongly recommend taming one. Next, you need a carrier dino like a Carcanos, Wyvern, or Argentavis. These guys will carry your resource gatherers around and make it 100 times easier to get what you need. Lastly, you need a powerful creature like a Rex or Therizinosaurus to help with base defense, clearing caves, and general protection. Other creatures work too, I've just picked Rex and Therizinosaurus for their popularity. Meet those 5 goals and you're in a seriously advantageous position. I very strongly recommend using Dododex to help you figure out what supplies you'll need to tame a particular creature too. It's a fantastic app and website that makes taming easier, so save yourself some struggle and download it. Tip number 7 is to hoard resources and stay organized. This is super simple, but you'll be surprised at the amount of stone, metal, and other vital resources that are needed to craft items. I can't tell you how many times I've thrown out flint so I could carry more stone, only to find that I need thousands of flint to accomplish something later. There's no such thing as too much of something in Ark, so take the time to stockpile everything you collect. That being said, it's crucial to stay as organized as possible, so you don't go looking through 10 chests to find your last little bit of hide, that's real annoying. You can rename your chests in the radial menu for quick organization, or you can put signs in front of sections of chests to create storage categories for yourself. Definitely get creative with this and make it as elaborate as you want, because you'll be in and out of your storage system for the entirety of the game. Tip number 8 is to upgrade everything as frequently as possible. This one really ties all of the other tips together, honestly. As you progress in Ark, you'll find that there are ages or eras, whatever you want to call it, that you go through as a player. The Stone Era, which takes place right at the beginning of the game, the Metal Era, which occurs when you start working with metal tools and items, the Industrial Era, which is when you upgrade your workstations to their industrial versions, and the Futuristic Era, or Tech Era. You can get into each era a lot quicker than you might think, so it's important to check your engrams every so often to see if there's anything to upgrade. Of course, progress like this isn't gonna happen overnight. You'll be slowly upgrading things as you go, but the key point here is to always be aiming for the best items and crafting stations that are available to you. Your goal should be to get to the Industrial Era as quickly as possible so that you could beat bosses and get to the tech tier. So don't be afraid to craft something if you don't know what it is. Most of the crafting stations you use at the beginning of the game have a better industrial version, so definitely look for them as you level. It will only help you. Tip number 9 is to collect the loot drops around the map. The reason for this is because supply crates can provide higher quality weapons and armor than what you can craft with the default engrams. Even better, they might drop blueprints that allow you to craft multiples of high quality gear. This is how players beat bosses with ease and overcome high caliber PvP encounters. There are 6 levels of quality ranging from primitive to ascendant, but just because something is ascendant doesn't automatically make it better than one of the lower tier items. The real magic comes from this percentage in the corner of the item or blueprint. The higher that percentage, the better the item is. Pretty straightforward. When crafting an item from a blueprint, your crafting skill actually matters. The higher your crafting skill, the higher the quality percentage of the item will be after crafting. Some players dedicate a second character to max level crafting, while others simply use mind wipe tonics to reset their stats. Loot crates that you find in caves or in oceans are usually better than the supply drops in the overworld. If you're struggling with combat, you should definitely be getting as many drops as you can. Tip number 10 is to learn the game in PvE. It's my firm belief that beginners should start the game by playing PvE, even if it's just for a few hours. PvP servers have the same environmental factors as PvE, the only difference is that you also have to worry about other players raiding you. Basically, starting in PvP adds an extra layer of difficulty and raises the skill ceiling required to be successful. I know that a big highlight to Ark is the PvP, but PvP in Ark is cutthroat and merciless. A beginner will totally get massacred on official PvP servers, and unfortunately it ruins the game for a lot of players. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that you can't learn valuable lessons and excel in PvP if you start that way, but you'll have way more challenges to overcome. As a beginner, your main objective should be to learn how to survive the environment alone to better understand how to use the world to your advantage. PvP and PvE go hand in hand, so it's definitely worth it to spend a few hours learning the things we talked about before moving on to PvP. I have some free PvE servers you can join by jumping into my Discord, so head there for more information if you're interested. Tremendous thanks to VIP patron Future Game Dev 2019 for supporting the channel. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you in the next video.